All right, all right. Wow, look at that. Welcome everyone who's joining us now for this presentation of the Numeric and Ramp Finance Engineers webinar. We're going to give folks about another minute or two to make their way into the Zoom. In the meantime, I'd love to know, where are folks calling in from? So let's see if the chat's working. Go ahead and throw in the chat, where you're calling in and watching our webinar, and we'll get started here in a sec.
I gotta type in that too.
Germany. Wow. Immediately wow, we got international. NYC, New Jersey. Dave, you're in New Jersey. Adam and I are based in SF. Francisco, you're in San Francisco too, right?
I am Francisco from San Francisco.
There it is. Yeah, Francisco from San Francisco. And Brock, remind me.
I'm just south of Salt Lake City, so in Utah.
There it
Stoked to be
is.
here.
Right on, right
Silicon
on.
slopes, as they call it.
That's right, baby. You get it right. You know it.
Tel
You know
Aviv.
what? You know what they
Nice.
call New York? They call it Silicon Alley. You heard that?
No, I've never heard that. I like that though. That's great.
Got folks from London, Seattle, Georgia. Nice, my home state. Yeah, we'll give things about another 30 seconds to a minute here and then get things on the road. Puerto Rico, wow, a lot of international representation. Tel Aviv as well. Columbus, Ohio, go Buckeyes. Nice. Nice. All right. Well, yeah, I think without further ado, we should get things going. So again, want to welcome everyone, and I'm gonna share my slides, and then we'll kick this bad boy off. All right, here we go. I always forget. Brock, Dave, Francisco, can you keep me honest? Are you seeing stuff up
We
here?
are. Damn, dude, you got some good slides. How'd you get that? How'd you get that animation going?
What can I
What?
say?
Eric's
A
fancy.
magician never gives away his tricks. All right, everyone. Well, welcome to this edition of the Finance Engineers. We have Brock Beyer from Jump, Dave Wieseneck from Ramp, Adam Heeger from Numeric, and Francisco Meyo from Abridge. And they're here today. These are the Finance Engineers, and they're excited to talk to you guys about, all these developments in the AI and accounting space. Our agenda here is simple. We'll go through some intros of each of our panelists. Then I have some panel questions, and depending on how we're looking on time, we'll either cut those short or we'll answer them all and move on to Q&A. Because what's a good panel without some audience Q&A, right?
Well,
So we'd like to know in the audience, are folks using MCPs? I think this is something that's becoming, a big topic of conversation in the finance engineering community. And so we'd love to know in the chat, if you're using an MCP, tell us, what's your favorite MCP that you connected? While folks are putting that in the chat, I'd love to know from our panelists here. What do you guys say? What's an MCP that you're getting a lot of use out of these days?
well, first, can anybody define MCP? Like, I learned about it like 2 months ago, what this term is, but like, there might be people on the call that don't know what an MCP is. Does anybody have a good definition?
Yeah, do any of our other panelists want to?
Sure, I can take that one. I mean, so MCC is a protocol that AI tools can use to talk to other tools. And so numeric, we have a numeric MCP. I see folks typing into the chat that they're using everything from NetSuite to Ramps MCPs. MCPs are sort of similar to APIs in a lot of ways. They let you use existing authentication protocols so that your AI tools, be it Claude, Codex, Gemini, whatever, can go and talk to these other systems and get the context information out of these tools in an automated fashion. And it's a great way to really up level your AI usage by giving autonomy to go and talk to new systems. I will say one of the MCPs I've really been using a lot is actually Datadog. Gives me a lot of context in what our customers are doing in our platform when they're hitting roadblocks, what might be causing them, drilling into seeing, why things are slowing down, why things are working, and how we can really just make the platform better. Maybe Brock, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've been using a lot. When you have to do a custom MCP, obviously it adds some additional constraints. But right now, like one of the biggest ones that I'm using, believe it or not, is ramps. I'm also using our ERP, which is Rillet. And it's crazy because like the other day I sat down and like a lot of accountants and finance professionals in the room have done some form of a cash analysis, right? Where it's like in this period, how much cash actually came in, how much cash actually went out, and how much of that was like internal transfers between these accounts, right? And I did a native MCP connection with Rillet and Ramp, gave this whole prompt, gave this whole project that I wanted to create. And now I have like this more or less forecast and cash analysis of everything. And like what would have taken days on end, just total pain points after pain points, is like a click of the button thing in my company's branding, logo, everything.
Love it.
With a click of the button. It's insane, dude. So
For
MCPs
me,
is huge.
For me, I've been using the Granola MCP. So it's taking obviously all of our calls. And so that's direct context into every single conversation or task that I have with Claude, if appropriate. And then Ironclad just came out with a MCP last week. So we've been using that now, which is really cool because it respects the permissions that you have with Ironclad for all of our contracts. So when you connect the MCP, it really just will show you only the contracts that you would have access to if you log into the website.
I was very surprised how good the Gmail MCP. All your examples are amazing. The Gmail is the simplest that you can use. How many times have you tried to go and say, oh, where is this email that Brock sent me?
Yeah.
The MCP for Gmail is fantastic.
It's
It gives
so
you like
good.
summarize. I think is the entry level one for everybody, honestly.
And Slack, the Slack MCP.
Oh yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, I these are some great answers. I think we've had some great answers here in the chat. We've had great answers from our panelists here, kind of talking about the realm of, these productivity MCPs, Slack, Notion, Gmail, as well as kind of the MCPs in your tech stack, right? Your ERP or Ramp or anything like that as well. So cool. Great intro question. Great to see that people in our audience are, if they weren't familiar with MCPs, maybe they learned a little bit there. And if they are, then they heard some more examples that they might be using. So, the title of this webinar is The Finance Engineers. And I think the things that all of our panelists have been talking about just now are kind of like evidence of what is this change in accounting, right? We're moving into a space and place. If 2023 and 2024, this was AI was kind of mainly chat oriented. Agents was something that we were starting to see evidence of, but maybe hadn't really concretely seen like, oh, this is going to take work off of my plate. As you'll hear from all of our panelists today, since the start of 2026, the game has changed, right? The game has changed. Building agentic workflows and automations is becoming a more valuable skill than ever before. And so we're starting to see this transition of accountants, of finance people who, have built up this domain expertise in the realm of accounting and are now transitioning that, or not even transitioning that, but using that expertise in a new way. And we're calling this the finance engineer, the individual who's architecting systems, who's architecting automations with the finance and business context that they already have in order to create, as Brock, explained, right? Taking a process that, formerly was a days-long process into something that's only taking a few hours. We've identified a few stats here as well at Numeric, right? Like what makes someone a finance engineer? We kind of think about, right? Like you can kind of see this almost video game radar that we've put together. But like, what is someone's understanding of the data that they have at their company? What's their understanding of that context? What about, stack, right? Are they able to make good decisions about when to build and when to buy? We'll hear about that from a number of our panelists as well, right? It's not that a good finance engineer builds every tool that they could, right? Same is true with controls. How might I use AI in a governable fashion? There'll be more details on this soon, but for finance engineers who are interested in kind of putting their skills to the test, Numeric is running a Finance Engineer Cup. We'll follow up more about this in the the post webinar email. But yeah, wanted to tease that for any interested individuals in the chat.
Oh, can we participate as well?
Yeah, very interested in this.
100%. So without further ado, that gets us to the finance engineers. Who are the finance engineers? And they're the panelists that we have here. So I want to get into intros, starting with Adam from Numeric. Hey, Adam, you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Nigel. Yeah, great to see everyone here. Thank you all for joining. My name's Adam. I'm a solutions manager here at Numeric. I'm currently leading our support team. And it's sort of a new role I took on in the last few months. But part of that big change was like, we saw this rapid adoption of all this AI tooling, and we said, okay, how can I sort of pivot into this new role and actually start using AI to help improve the Numeric platform in ways that like I would have no skills to do just a few months ago. So my background is in accounting. I started my career in public accounting, as I'm sure many of you on this webinar today have did about 10 years at KPMG, switched over to Meta and was there for about 5 years on their revenue accounting team, and then moved over to Numeric to help do customer implementations, customer success, and really make sure all the accounting teams that are using our platform were getting the most out of it. So I know accounting. I sort of understand the close process. And it was now a question of like, how can we actually bring that to an engineering role to actually get the most out of this, to ship features with more velocity, to understand, customer needs in a way that, someone who sat in the shoes that you guys all sit in can really understand. And so Nigel picked out a few little pictures here on the right of different PRs I've been putting up in the last few months to really just make the platform better for everyone that's using it. And it's been a really fun change to see how AI has enabled us to really just actually ship stuff to our customers' hands in ways that we were never thinking were possible even a few months ago.
2x the CEO. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, what's crazier, Dave? The fact that the CEO and Adam are some of our biggest contributors to to our engineering efforts, right? Like that wasn't even, couldn't be true months ago even. Adam, tell us a bit about your advice here, right? Like, a lot of people are going to come on here and they're excited about the opportunity to vibe code, the opportunity to be finance engineers, but you also want to provide some frame of reference for what is perhaps overstepping the boundary of experimentation and exploration into making like perhaps poor decisions about building out a tech stack.
Yeah, so I think, there's a lot of different ways to approach, how you're going to use AI. I think some folks think that you can sort of wave a magic wand and you instantly have, sort of end-to-end tooling that's ready to go, that's going to scale up your business. And I think, half of that can be true. You can have tooling that is, ready to go, it looks really good, but don't sort of underestimate the maintenance piece of all of that. If you want to create, tooling that's replacing stuff that's in your stack currently, that is awesome, but like really make sure you understand like how you're going to roll that out, how other people are going to be able to access it, what other security requirements exist, things like that. And so obviously I work at a vendor. It's not good to just go and replace vendor tooling, but we all ultimately work at, different vendors. That's how we all stay in business. And so I think there's a lot of ways that you can use AI. We talked a little about MCPs already. I think one of the really cool features of what the latest capabilities in AI around finance engineering are enabling is you used to have all this data in different silos. You had, just a ton of information that was stored in Ramp. You had a ton of information that was, being stored in different revenue systems that, you're collecting from your customers. And from an accounting perspective, you just sort of sat there and you waited for it to eventually land in your lap from these different teams that would go and supply that data to you each month. And the reality is now, like, you can go and query that data really easily, and you can sort of go upstream and get the data in the way and shape that you want and need it to go and facilitate your month-end close in ways that you couldn't do before without having at least a dedicated sort of engineering team behind you. And so what we've seen really is just a change in the way I think people should think about approaching month end. It's, what data, what program should I go write to enable me to pluck all that data up, format it, get it ready to go, and then sort of feed into these downstream systems. So I don't necessarily see that as like you're going to go and replace a bunch of systems, but how do you start creating the links in a way that enables you to have a faster, smoother process?
Awesome. And then Adam, a question. Oh, go ahead, Francisco.
Sorry. I was just going to ask to the panel in general, because the one thing that we're seeing, and I guess everyone's seeing it, there's this push to like, hey, start measuring how many tokens per month everyone has, and you have like your boards and all that.
Token maxing, man.
Exactly my point. But the thing is, where we're struggling, and I want to hear what the other panelists think about this, is how do we really measure ROI? Because we had somebody from our team like leading the board, and we're like, wow, what did you do? And it's like, well, it's just that I was also feeding a ton of PDFs into the LLM, which obviously accounts for input tokens, right? So in essence, we started to measure ROI based on the number of PRs that everyone is submitting. And I saw Adam, you would be fantastic. You would be doing fantastic here. But that's a little bit unfair for the not engineering side of the team. So wondering how you're measuring your AI utilization in your organizations.
Yeah, I mean, I'll raise my hand here. We've we've also had a leaderboard, and there was a lot of kind of token maxing and people trying to show the input of their AI usage, which was great. We wanted to get everybody at the organization to a level up in kind of how they're using AI, make sure that they are thinking about solving problems, not just with like the old way of doing things or with the systems they have, but rather like rethinking how they even approach a problem. Now with AI being, there's new ways to solve different problems or solve different processes. With that being said, like we've been successful at up-leveling the entire organization, and now we're starting to shift to say, okay, let's make sure that the output of what we're doing is really beneficial. We want to find the right balance of encouraging our employees to use AI as much as possible, but obviously, like make sure they're not always using the highest level model, making sure they're not having their AI tooling just running 24/7 and eating up tokens if it's not producing value. So there is going to be kind of like token engineering and value engineering that goes into whatever you build. I think that aligns with what Adam is saying here, right? Which is like the AI mandate doesn't mean that you just go build something. If there is a deterministic tool out there that solves your problem really well and is cost effective because they are amortizing the cost of building that tool across, 1,000, 2,000 customers, that may be the most cost effective and the fastest way, in kind of fastest way for you to get value in the build versus buy discussion.
Right on. Right on. All right, we're gonna move. Adam, a question for you before you move to introducing Brock. But I'm curious, what's the most impressive build or automation you may be seeing from a numeric customer? But before you go, I also want to acknowledge it seems that we're getting responses in our chat and they're coming to the host and the panelists, but maybe you guys aren't seeing them from one another. So if
Oh
you send any
no.
questions, I know, yeah. If you send any questions, all good. We will make sure to surface those during our Q&A. So keep sending questions to the chat and everything, and we'll make sure that that you guys can see it. But anyway, Adam, on to you.
Yeah, I've seen a handful now. I think this is sort of rapidly accelerated since we launched our own MCP. But a couple come to mind really, and I think it's really just again adding different context and the ability to sort of use and now sort of intertwine different systems together in a way that you would need a dedicated SWE basically on your team to do in the past. And so, one example that really sort of stood out to me is we have, one customer in particular who has really tried to like lean into automation, and they have starting to put, the skill references and the task descriptions in numeric. And so they will go and they will ping the numeric MCP at the beginning and close, and it will say, go look at all my tasks. And in the task description, we'll see the skill that it wants to go and run. And then they have a sort of predefined, skill that Claude and goes and executes to complete a task. And it will go and do a bunch of things across a bunch of different, upstream data sources. Then it will go and ping other, downstream owners via Slack that things are now ready to go. And ultimately go and, push the submit button back to numeric that the task is complete. So I think you're starting to see sort of the beginning of really like an orchestration layer where you have like a sort of agentic workflow with the numeric, which is really cool to see how folks are sort of, stringing that together currently.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam. All right, Brock, the
Ah,
AI, the AI evangelist, man. You've been on a tear here on LinkedIn. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, what's up, everybody? I'm stoked to be here. I'm Brock. I'm the controller at Jump. We are the AI, we're the leading AI operating system for financial services professionals. So think AI note-taking app that's just blown up into insights, sentiment analysis, and everything else for everyone from insurance providers all the way to, RIAs, wealth management, everything. So I was the first accounting hire here, and prior to joining here, I worked as the first accounting hire at a startup in Utah and KPMG. So Adam, shout out KPMG alum. I love that. Um, but yeah, in my spare time, I'm one of those weirdos that just loves talking about accounting. Like I literally write about it all the time on my Substack called New Age Accounting. You can see the link right here. Um, but yeah, it's great to be here. I'm stoked to be here.
Right on, right on. A bit of advice from you. We've had some conversations, Brock, and um, you talk a lot about how like getting your hands dirty is really the way that you're going to like learn and persevere and like you yeah, it is the way forward for this era of accounting. Why don't you speak to this quote and tell the audience a bit more?
Yeah. So for me, I think what's very interesting is that I know a lot of people who are very scared about where we're at in the future, right? And like what the future is going to be because they're like, I did this accounting degree, but like, what am I going to do with this now? Like, how does this tie into AI? How does this tie into everything else that we're doing, right? And I actually firmly believe that like our foundation in accounting and in finance is actually going to be the thing that sets us apart and makes us great, right? So the people who have actually been in the trenches, the people who have actually been doing the month-end close, they know those late hours. They've had to perform manual reconciliations. They've had to do analysis, right? Those are the people who are going to win in the AI race if they are curious, if they are willing, if they can be able to stay like authentic and genuine and true to themselves and just, be humble that they don't know what's going on, but they're curious enough and they will make the decisions to move forward. Those are the people that are going to win because they've endured the blood, sweat, and tears at the month end close. They know exactly what problems AI can solve. So that's what this quote is essentially saying.
And I feel like in your, in kind of building a community around everything that's happening here, you've had a chance to interface with some people who have like really, people who weren't even bi-coastal or anything like that are like, outside of the SF or New York hubs where I think a lot of this work is getting attention. You've had the opportunity to meet people who really like are building things in places nobody expected. What are some stories or individuals that like come to mind when you think about that?
Yeah, it's funny. I always bring her up, so I don't know if she's here, but Veronica Bruce is literally my favorite story and my favorite person that I talk about. I've been doing these live vibe coding sessions with Realit, and we've done them every week for the last like, I don't know, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it is. And you always in the chat will see people, like you said, on the coast. And those are where the hubs are. That's, New York, San Francisco, that's what you expect. But I did a live vibe coding stream of like building a procurement intake tool. And like, it was super fun. It was just showing people that it's so much easier than you think it actually is to start. And what's crazy is, this reached Veronica, who has been working for 20 plus years as an accountant, as a finance professional. And she's been in the trenches. She's the one who's like seen it firsthand. But she's in the middle of Alabama, which is not like a tech hub by any stretch. But it like inspired her to start just building. And for me, like she credits that like moment of like showing how simple it is, but just like empowering people and just empowering them through positivity.
Yeah.
And she's become a voice, and she's been posting on LinkedIn. She's showing people how to build, and she's actually built some crazy, crazy tools because she knows what problems that AI can solve. She's easily like my favorite use case of this. Like, it's just a fun time. Like, it's an amazing time to be in accounting and finance.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's very democratizing that, access to these tools and access to these capabilities is going to be available to everybody. Very cool.
Yeah, It's insane. Like, I think the world's becoming so small too. And like, I think the finance and accounting communities are starting to become really, really like incredible. And so like, I'm just stoked. Like, I think everyone should be very, very excited to be in accounting and finance at this time, in my opinion.
I love that story, bro. I love that. Um, Almost you can kind of in that description hear like these elements of like the accounting intelligence and the like understanding of where to build and where to buy these things. Veronica, or sorry, yeah, she had
Veronica.
like, yeah, Veronica, right? Thank you. That she had through her time in accounting, kind of coming to just meeting the moment that is our current like agentic building era. So that's awesome. Dave, I think you also have, plenty of opinions here on kind of like how the accounting world will change, how accounting roles are going to change,
Sure.
and what people will be doing. So, what can you say?
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. David Wieseneck over at Ramp. I'm on the finance team. And one of the things that we've been talking about a lot is kind of the future of what your finance team will look like and what your role within the team will look like. And it's very much aligned with this idea of a finance engineer where, what definitely in the future, but starting now, what we've been seeing is that the role is moving away from humans handling that transactional layer of work, and rather orchestrating a handful of agents to do that transactional work. So our roles as finance leaders, controllers, FP&A, will look different, where we are building agents, providing them guidance and access to tools and context, deploying these agents, and then managing them and the work that they do, instead of managing, a large team. Um, uh, a large team of humans will be managing a larger team of agents to do the work, swarms of agents. And so I think that's very much aligned with this kind of idea of finance engineering, and building, the data pipelines, the systems, the context for that job to be done.
Right on. All right. Yesterday when we
Yeah.
were doing our rehearsal, I mean, you had a strong take here, which is like, if a student is like in college or even if someone's maybe early in their career or even mid-career, right? The thing that's gonna, make a difference is the ability to understand agentic workflows.
Yeah, I mean, right now in our hiring practices, right, when we are interviewing people to join Ramp, we're asking people to showcase not just do they know AI, what tools do you use, but literally show it to us, right? Because that is the job going forward, is being able to build agentic workflows to do the job. Not right. It's great that I know US GAAP, but like ChatGPT and Claude knows way more the US GAAP than I will ever know. Knowing how to do accounting or knowing debits and credits is not going to get you a job going forward. But being able to deploy agents that have that knowledge, plus the entire knowledge of the internet and US tax code and IFRS is going to be much more valuable going forward. And so, when I talk to college kids that are graduating now and they say, hey, listen, I have this degree, it's great. What can I do in the workforce? I'm advising them, like, go prove out that you can build agentic workflows to a prospective employer, instead of sending them a resume and a cover letter about like what you've done and why you want to work at this company. Go vibe code a website, record yourself vibe coding on Claude Code or Codex, and then send that hour-long video of you building the resume or your website as your proof of concept, as your cover letter. That is going to get you hired much quicker today and going forward, than just sending, a PDF that looks very nice and formatted well.
I think that's one of the coolest things. Like, I think if I was interviewing today and someone sent me their GitHub repo and a vibe coded tool was like, this is why you should hire me, I'd literally axe every single PDF and be like, what in the world? Like, this is the person I want to work with.
It would get you
would
the
just,
top of the list immediately.
not even a question.
Yeah.
I wouldn't care. Like, I wouldn't care. And this is a very hot take. I wouldn't look at their education background. I wouldn't look at their work experience. I wouldn't scrutinize their work experience too hard. I would literally just be like, that person is like showing that they are taking the initiative in the change. It's insane. Like, I love that. I think that's awesome that Ramp's doing that. It's no surprise to me that Ramp is leading the AI like race right now in so many levels. Like, when you're doing stuff like that, that's no surprise to me.
And it came out yesterday during the rehearsal. I was telling the panelists that we were hiring for a GL manager role, an accounting role, and the person that we end up hiring, it's somebody that did exactly that. We sent her a case study, and she sent us back a GitHub repository with a README file and all the code necessary that I could run, that I had an agent review and give me observations. And that's the future of our teams, people with this that are danger, not only in the accounting side, but also in the coding, vibe coding side of the equation.
Indeed. I just want to call out, I wrote this in the chat. We're getting a lot of great questions in the chat, and they're coming right to me and to Adam and Dave and Brock, but I think they're really meant for everyone to interact. So what you should see in the chat, I see it on my side, is when you're typing a message, it says to, and then just be sure that says to everyone and not to host and panelist. Or, we are happy to answer. Again, we'll answer these questions as we get into our Q&A. But just want to make sure that if you have a comment, be sure that you're sending it to everyone. I apologize. The chat fiasco is completely my mistake. All right. Now, Dave, something that I found interesting, on your first slide, there was a bullet there about your debate with Numeric CEO Parker Gilbert in the AI cohort.
I remember that.
Year.
I think I won that one, actually. I think I won.
I think the verdict is out. I don't know. What can I say? Maybe I'm biased. But I think if you compare, even that was late October of 2025, and kind of, yeah, right, like the perspective on agents and the like compared to today, right? Like that was a prescient observation. So my question to you is, what lies ahead, right? If last year you and the team at Ramp are saying like, we're pretty confident that these like multi-agent workflows are going to arrive, what do you think is soon to come after?
So I think what we talked about then is coming to life. And I think what's really interesting is, like, previously the way that you built software, the way you use software is you as a user went to the user interface and you interacted with the software, and behind it was database. So you typed something in, or you asked, you had some trigger and you called from the database, right? So user to the user interface and then to the database. And now what we're seeing with MCPs and APIs, we're seeing a ton of growth, for sure for Ramp, but I'm sure all of the software they're talking about here, a ton of growth in the usage of MCPs. And what that means is that the way that humans are now using software is through their agents, right? So user to a user's agent, let's say Claude or ChatGPT, whatever your agent of choice is, and that agent is now then querying the database either to write or to read from that database. And what's coming next is going to be agent-to-agent interaction. So in this example, me as the user, I'm using Claude. That is my agent. Claude knows everything about me. And that agent, instead of directly querying the database through an MCP, that agent is going to talk to, let's say, Ramp's agent, or Numeric's agent, right? Or Rillet's agent, or Notion's agent, whatever tool you're calling upon. That agent knows everything about that tool and that database. My agent knows everything about me and the job that I want to get done. And together, they're going to work together to get that job done. And now you can add in multiple agents, right? Rillet plus Notion plus Ramp plus Numeric. And together, that team of agents will work together to get a job done, each doing what it is best suited for, because it's been trained, it has the tools, and it has the context and the skills to get jobs done, they will work together as a team. And that is going to be the future of kind of like agentic workflows going forward.
When you brought that up in our rehearsal, Dave, I was like, I think you'll be right about that too. This the agent loaded with context talking to another agent makes perfect sense. I'm seeing that we're getting actually a ton of questions in the chat here. So I don't want why don't we move on? Francisco, let's do your introduction, and then after that, I think the folks are itching to hear what you guys have to say in response to their questions. So we'll Francisco, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, as many of you guys in the audience, I come from public accounting. Spent a lot of time at PwC. The last couple of years of my tenure, I was part of the Digital Accelerator group, and then I joined this very scrappy startup called Masterworks. It's a great investment platform for investment in blue chip art. But really, the big thing that I got from there was a group of people that we work in there. Our CFO Nigel, he was very eager to bring technology into accounting. So we started to change the profile of our hires and starting to bring in all these accounting kids that also know how to code and started to like grow very quickly in terms of automation. And now I'm here at the Bridge, very similar company as Brock, but as John, but more tailored towards healthcare. So if you've been to the doctor and the doctor asks you if you consent to record the session, it's probably because it's recording it at Abridge. I have a blog in which I like to share a lot of my code, a lot of the solutions that I do. Please feel free to join to the community. Really, what I'm trying to do is to share a lot of what I do every day, share a ton of code that if you don't want to use, you can at the very least use it as a base to ask Cloud Code, hey, look at this code. Why don't you do something similar with our own data?
I think I would say accounting very much is in its blog era, right? Brock, you have your own Substack. Francisco, you have your website as well. Francisco, your advice here to teams that are making, again, these build versus buy decisions.
It's a tough thing because we were talking about this yesterday, right? Like how the whole SaaS apocalypse and how people, like, I remember seeing this reporter saying that she spent 20 minutes in Claude and she did like a lighter version of Monday.com. So you're like, why would I get Monday.com now? Well, the reality is that, and it's been said before, you need to be like mature enough to say, hey, what of this is something that I can build versus one of this is something that I should buy? Because what we do here at the Bridge is that we focus on micro automations that fill in certain gaps between our integrations. But the reality is that we're not software developers. We don't have the expertise like in the accounting team to make sure that we don't have any security concerns, because one thing is creating a script that runs very nicely in your computer. Another one is very, very different when you put it into production. And I work at a company in which we manage very sensitive information. I don't want to be the one. I don't want accounting to be the one that causes a data breach that bankrupts the company. So that's what I advise you to think about. Like, okay, why don't I go with the professionals? Why don't I go with the Numerics or Ramps of the world that not only they're gonna have like very cool agentic workflows, but they also take care of this security piece that it's so important.
Can I add on, as someone I mean, we're all vibe coding. Brock is, if you haven't joined like Brock's vibe coding on Fridays with Rilla, like you should definitely do it. But like we're all vibe coding, we're all creating software. But my analogy is it's kind of like we all have access to digital cameras, but that doesn't make us photographers, right? The cost of building software has decreased, where it is now maybe valuable to build a very niche software for just yourself because the cost of doing it is so low. But that doesn't necessarily make you a software developer. But there is obviously value, like you said, micro interactions, niche software. Or, of course, yes, building something that is specific to you or your need. The other valuable thing of building software is to put pressure on your software providers, right? It does bring down, allows you to have a better pricing discussion if there's like a real threat of leaving them to something that you vibe code. But like Francisco was saying, you are not necessarily going to be a full-on software engineer. That may not be where the value creation is for you. And you have to think about the maintenance costs. You have to think about edge cases. You have to think about user access rights and security. There's a lot that goes into building software that you can put into production. So there is a real build versus buy kind of point of view that you want to have when vibe coding stuff.
Indeed. And then, Francisco, question to you before we kind of start getting into our audience questions here. But, when you and I have chatted, like you talk about kind of the exercises and the qualities that you are looking for from people who are candidates at Abridge to join the finance team. Tell our audience a bit more about what those exercises look like and, what the qualities are that you most admire in your candidates.
Now that I remember, this is what I would bring in the anecdote about this candidate of the GL manager, because that's exactly what we do. We ask them to prove us, here's a real life case study that we just anonymize the data, but it's like exactly reports how they come from different systems. And to give you an example, we would give a payroll register and we tell them, why don't you use this payroll register and create a solution that pushes the journal entry or prepares everything to push the journal entry into our ERP. And we have come up with amazing solutions. People using like TypeScript, or people using Python, or people using no-code solutions. And the reality is that that's the future, because all those solutions they can be implemented on day one and add value on day one once they hit the ground here at Abridge.
Amazing. All right. Well, here, I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I think it's time for us. Let's see. I'm going to open. Man, that's a great question as well. All right, guys. It's time now to extend our audience questions to our panelists here. So, something I'm seeing a theme that is coming across a number of these questions is about, right? Like, I want to use AI, but my parent company is reticent, or I want to use AI, but my I need to talk about it with my IT team. And so there seems to be this concern about, how might I start to use these tools, even if some of the people at my company that have jurisdiction maybe make it more difficult for me to do so. I'm curious if you guys have any thoughts on how those conversations might happen, how you might work with your IT team or your CTO or whomever to make it easier for your finance team to use these types of tools.
It's a good question. I struggle to answer that. We've taken a very maximalist approach here at Ramp. We've procured a lot of different platforms, opened up the floodgates, gotten IT and legal and InfoSec and finance all on board, realizing that the risk is much greater to stay on the sidelines and not be building building the future of not only how we operate, but also of our business and our product. We've taken the approach that risk is much greater than, of course, risks of data leakage, or which is not to say that's not a real risk. We're putting in safeguards, but we've gotten everybody on the table to look at those risks and put in those safeguards so that we can take the opportunity of this moment. If you are waiting for legal, if you're waiting for InfoSec, if you're waiting for finance or leadership, push them and help them understand the urgency of the moment. Because what we're seeing in the data is that the companies that are adopting AI are growing revenue at a much faster rate than those companies that are not spending any money on investing in AI. We see it in our spend data of our 50,000 customers. And so that is a real proof point to your organization leadership to make sure that you are investing and giving access to these capabilities.
I totally agree with Dave in which you have to be cautious as well. At the Bridge, we have an AI committee that is comprised by IT, legal, finance people. Anyone in the company can submit a case and make the business case about why we want to add a connector to Cloud or why do we want to try this tool and that. But they have to be tools that are vetted by all these different parts of the business, and specifically security is one of the big ones. Like vendors that have a SOC 2, they are like imperative. And then I have to say, we use ramps to make sure that we funnel all these requests through. So for instance, nobody in the company that has a credit card can spend $1 in SaaS platforms. That's a restriction that thanks to Ramp, we have to funnel that process to our AI committee because sure, we are all up for it. We want everybody to have access. We have to access to as many tokens, to as many tools as they want, but we have to think on being cautious about it and not put the data of our own data and the data of our customers at risk.
Of course.
I want to move to a different question here that Justin Rand asked in the middle of the webinar. He says, how do you see these tools that will be available to everyone separate people and allow the profession to add value to a business? And in parentheses, he puts, an old school way of thinking by businesses, C-suite, small to mid-sized business owners is that accountants just shuffle the numbers around, beyond paying bills and creating budgets that they don't do anything that help businesses to sell or to grow. Do you see any of this evolution and new skill set of building agents changing that somewhat older way of thinking or POV in the business community? Very curious here.
I'm happy to take this one.
Of course, go ahead.
I think for accountants, we remember a lot of what we do is the transactional layer of work, right? We take a transaction from the point of origination, we code it up, right? This department, that location, this GL code, and then we put it into the GL. Then, of course, we add everything up and we report on our financials, right? That's essentially the crux of what a lot of accounting work is. And there is definitely strategic work, and there is definitely work where we are analyzing the information and providing insights to the company, but that only happens once we close the books, right? And so the faster you can close the books, the faster you can get to insight and then strategic decision making and to drive the company forward. And the great thing about AI is that it works 24/7 and can automate itself, and all of that transactional work, if you set up the pipelines, can do that transactional work really well, which then allows us as a profession to focus more and more, if not all of our time, on the strategic work and moving our business forward and helping the company make strategic decisions that are grounded in financial truth. And so that's where I think our profession is going and how I like to think about the future of our jobs.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, it's funny because I went back and I read through, this is a long question, so I wanted to make sure that I understood it. But for me, the piece that I'm going to tackle is, do any of you see this evolution and new skill sets of building agents changing the somewhat older way of thinking? And 100%, like, not even a question. So like, just to give context for me, it's what are you going to do when all the transactions are automatically coded and processed for you, right? Like, what are you going to do when that foundational layer that allows you to create financial statements is automated and like you're not in the weeds, so to speak, nearly as much as you used to be? Like, when you have hours and hours of time each week, you're going to be more involved in discussions. You're going to be able to provide real-time value. Because like, if you think about getting real-time value, like, imagine a world, and this is the way that I'm thinking about it, imagine a world where on the spot or pretty soon after, you can have real-time data that you can be able to present to a business leader, and mid-month or on the spot, they can be able to make necessary pivots and adjustments to course correct, or they can double down on marketing efforts, or they can double down on areas just because we have insights on the spot. you're going to have more discussions and more of a voice and be able to have a seat at the table, whereas historically accountants have been back office by nature. I think that's the way it's going to change. I really do. I firmly believe that. So
Right on. Right on. There are a few questions here. So there's one here which is interesting, if I might interject, which Mark Valderrama asked, can we afford to hire fresh college grads anymore? And so this question actually came up last night at a Numeric like AI show and tell in San Francisco. And so it was interesting to hear from a controller at Cardless as well as an accountant at Benchling. And their answer to this question was yes, right? Like as you use AI and you increase the amount of output, right? You are naturally going to also increase the amount of review, right? So if AI is helping you prepare more information and you're creating more data and the like, you're also going to want more eyes, more people to review. And can you use, newer junior staff accountants to do that work? And so it was interesting to hear, representatives from each of these companies say, hey, yeah, we are actually making investments in younger accountants and junior accountants to do some of this work. Curious
And
if
not only
yeah,
that,
go
but
ahead,
like
Dave.
those new grads are going to be joining the workflows and be AI native, right? Like we around the room, we've all had to learn AI on the job, but like they know how to use, or they're learning how to use AI natively, because they're learning this younger and they have more time on their hands to play around with the platform and to use the technology. I gotta like do it on my nights and weekends. I got kids. It's like hard to vibe code in the day, and I gotta find other times to do it. They have more time, and so they're learning these tools and becoming native with them. That is going to be extremely valuable in the workforce. I can teach someone US GAAP and they can go query it using ChatGPT if they need to learn accounting. What I need to hire is people that know how to build agentic workflows. And so that is going to be the value that they bring to the table.
I'm with Dave 100% on that. 100%. Like, I don't think AI, like, I firmly do not believe that AI fully replaces accountants. I think that it enables accountants. And yeah, will you be required to have less headcount? Yeah, 100%. Like, absolutely, you'll have less headcount. But I think, like, if I was an accounting student right now and I just graduated from college, I'd be just stoked because, like, this is like not the boring behind the scenes work that you're signing up for anymore. Like, it's a completely different way of like the profession is in just like a total pivotal moment right now, and it's incredible. Like, I would be stoked to be graduating right now. Honestly,
Yeah,
I firmly believe that.
I would tell you that we love hiring for talent at the Bridge, and I agree with Dave that all the kids coming out of college right now they grew with probably like a tablet in their hands, right? Different to us that are more like old dogs, and we had to learn new tricks. But and to that end, I think as I said, the profile of the new accountant is like more towards understanding these new technologies. So I would be more nervous if I was a very experienced accountant with absolutely no background of not trying to get into these new tools. That would terrify me more than being somebody fresh out of college.
Yeah, well, I
Which
think
is no,
there's
totally
another
agree.
question too on, is the CPA still relevant? Which I thought was an interesting question. And because I think like the really lethal combo to Francisco's point is like the old dog who knows Gap really well, who has a really deep understanding of, their own company's books and records, sort of has a vague understanding of like how all the systems are out there, but is willing to take that jump and go and build. And I think like it can be scary if you've never done it before. And you may not realize the capabilities and how fast some of this AI tooling has moved in the last, few months and everything. But really to like take that first dive, like I think that's where you really like can set yourself apart really quickly because the tooling is out there and it allows you to go and connect these data streams to do something in a deterministic approach these days, right? When we're talking about vibe coding and agents, it's not just letting Claude or whoever sort of sit there and think. It's you're writing a script that is repeatable, that you can take from one period to the next and get the same results. But like how you go and actually define that, like what your revenue is going to be and what what adjustments you need to make that are specific to your own business. I think that's where that like real good institutional knowledge like still is at play. And I think that's why the CPA is going to stay relevant, because there are specific accounting rules and there are, things that you need to know and understand and make a connection for that. The AI is not quite there yet. It doesn't mean that like I think we should be taking the same CPA test in 5 years that we took 10 years ago or 20 years ago. But these things are gonna have to adopt, but like people who have accounting knowledge are still going to be important, but it's going to be people who have accounting knowledge that take a leap into AI are going to really set themselves apart.
Yeah,
I think one thing.
it would be like saying I'm going to join an accounting profession and not learn how to use Excel, right? I mean, we used to have these conversations like, cloud or mobile, right? But now we're all cloud and mobile native, and we will all be AI native soon enough. These are just tools that we're going to be used, and they're going to be pervasive to all of our jobs in the coming years.
I'm throwing in the chat, like I just literally wrote about this, like, and it's just something interesting that I like. When I told my wife that I wrote about this, she was like, "Oh my Lord, like that is the biggest snooze fest of an article I've ever heard of." The auditability of agents and like the way that I'm like thinking about things is like, I actually like, believe it or not, I'm actually beyond bullish on accountants building, because I believe that the accounting profession and finance profession in general teaches you so many things that makes you better. And so, for example, like when we're talking about financial data, like a lot of us come from a public accounting background. So you learn about assertions, right? And you learn about like completeness, accuracy, existence, presentation. Like you understand like what auditors are looking for, right? So whenever I'm creating these tools, I'm like, well, how can I test for completeness on this, right? And you can be able to create skills that are doing a completeness check, or you can be able to do an accuracy check where it's doing mathematical accuracy. It's validating that the inputs are creating an effective output, right? So I actually believe that being an auditor and being an accountant makes you better at this. I truly do believe that. And that's kind of what I talk about in this. It's like the way that you're going to be audited on these things is because the buck stops at you. Even if the agent doesn't work, like if the agent doesn't work, it's on you. So like you have to figure it out. And I think just using that framework is going to be super, super crucial.
These are awesome insights, guys. I want to make sure we have time for our last question. I'll pitch in here and say that it seems based on all your answers, the real take home here is like you bring the perspective that you bring, right? Whether you are someone that has years or decades of gap knowledge and now is getting accustomed to the tools, or you're a young, spry, college graduate who's AI native and can go and learn the accounting. You bring the perspective that you bring, and you use the skills that you have in order to like augment and accentuate the work. I'll mention that last night at this show and tell of accountants, I think two of the accountants that had created these AI workflows were both under 25, right? Like, fresh, new to the career. One had built like a GL coding kind of workflow, and the other had built a sales calculator. We have a minute left. Last question. Leah Fitz asked earlier, how do you not feel like you're going behind, right? How do you not feel like AI is changing every day and it's a hard like reality to keep up with? We all talked about this yesterday, right? Which is like, you guys are
Leah,
as new to these things.
I feel like I'm so behind. I have so much FOMO. Things are moving so fast. This is a feeling we all have. You are not alone. Trust me. I think the
100%.
good thing is like no one is that far ahead. Like I learned how to use Claude Code 3 months ago. It was February. Brock learned how to use it, I think, at the same time in February. Like, just get started today. You will be an expert in no time. You will be building really cool stuff. No one is that far ahead. This is all extremely new to every profession. Being on this call makes you in the top 1%. Absolutely. Like, you should feel good about the fact that you're on this call. You are ahead of the game.
It's so funny
Best
because
time yeah.
So
Go ahead, Francisco.
My answer was gonna be, I don't know, because I feel exactly like that. Every time I open YouTube, it's like, cloud this, cloud that, AI this, AI. There's so many things going on every day that it's impossible to keep in. And we had this discussion yesterday as well. put $100, put down $100, get yourself a Cloud Max account and just start vibing. That's the easiest way.
The
Yep.
best
Awesome.
time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The next best time is today. Just start. Just start. I promise you, it's so much easier than you think. I
Yeah.
promise.
And I think like just to wrap it all up there too is like, the first time I did it was I wasn't trying to go and build 10 agents that all talk to each other and you pushed a button and it did an end-to-end process and did everything. It was, I had this manual process that took a lot of time. It was just moving data around in Excel files. Like what would it take to like not have to do that? How could I go upstream and just get that data formatted in the right format to start with? And it was just one of those things where it's like this aha moment when it worked. And you're like, oh, well, if I can do that, then I can go and do this and that. And you start to just sort of build on that momentum. You find either sessions like this that you can keep following or other thought leaders, and you just sort of keep an ear to the ground, and eventually you gain more and more confidence. And but I feel the same way. Like I feel like I'm always behind. There's always something happening when Claude updates the app multiple times a day. It's just like holy smokes, like the amount of code that Anthropic's sitting there shipping is insane, and everyone else is trying to keep up, and they're trying to keep up internally even with their capacity, right? So it's a wild time.
Awesome. Well, Adam, Brock, Francisco, Dave, thank you guys so much. Thank you for joining today. It seems like people are saying in the chat that they really had a great time and really enjoyed listening. That's an awesome
Stephanie's
Stephanie.
stoked. She is
Yeah,
hyped.
she
I
left a
love it.
message. After a hard
Love
day
it.
of manual work, I'm hyped. Let's go.
Let's go.
Thank you guys for all of your energy. Thank you to the audience for all of your questions. We'll certainly be doing more sessions like this. And everyone take care. And we're excited to see the finance engineers that come out of all of this. So everyone have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.